Welcome back to the Phazon Labs. This is powered by World 1-1, and it's one of our new shows where each week we pitch a brand new Metroid game because Nintendo refuses to make one and let us have it. So we're just going to keep making these and quietly sliding them under somebody's door at Nintendo until eventually we get a new game. So I am, as always, your host, Larry the Bearded Wonder. Joining me this week is the fantastic Isabel Bramman.
Hi.
And we are joined this week by special guests from the Omega Metroid Podcast, Andy Spiteri.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
And the devilishly handsome but off-camera Dakota Lasky.
Oh my god, wow, thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us. So this week we're Isabel and I are going to take the back seat here and just kind of have fun with whatever idea or pitch that Andy throws us. Dakota gets next week. So, Andy, hit me with your pitch. What's the Metroid game that you want to see, that you want to play?
Oh, all right. Okay, so on first pitch, let's rock and roll.
Nothing's off limits here.
Okay, so my pitch for a new game would be it wouldn't necessarily be Metroid 5, but let's just call it Metroid 5, I guess, because it's going to take place after Fusion. How long after Fusion, I'm not exactly sure, but it's going to take place afterwards. So the idea that I had is I'm a fan of Fusion, but I'm not like a diehard fan of Fusion, and I feel like I want to have that kind of story contained unto itself. So what we could take away from Fusion is that Samus is going to be at odds with the Galactic Federation, and that's going to be the primary, like, kind of organization opposing her. And maybe, like, you know, we've seen that in other M. It's not like the entire Galactic Federation, so maybe it's just like you guys remember Metal Gear Solid, like the Patriots? Like, it wasn't everyone, but it was like that select group that was kind of doing the evil stuff. Yeah. So let's just say that there's like a very powerful group inside of the Galactic Federation that is, doing some bad stuff. They're trying to create some Metroids, etc., etc. So that's going to be our new group, and they're going to kind of sort of replace the Space Pirates. I feel like you can have the Space Pirates still be there. They can still be a thing, but they're leaderless, they're disorganized, they're just kind of scattered around. So the new primary focus threat is going to be the Splinter cell of the Galactic Federation. You're also going to have, as Samus Returns has kind of alluded to, this Dark Chozo faction that is doing some bad stuff. And I feel like for my pitch, for my game, they're going to kind of be behind the scenes right now, but they're going to be like the next big threat, and they're going to be the next big thing. So establishing that, like, we have the Splinter cell, let's just call them the Splinter cell of the Galactic Federation. Those are going to kind of be the baddest of the bad guys. We have the Dark Chozo in the background. We can then go to Samus kind of being more or less, an outlaw or definitely persona non grata within the Galactic Federation. So we're going to pick off after Metroid Fusion ends, and like we can leave enough room so that if we want like a direct sequel from Metroid Fusion, that can happen. But we're gonna just assume that Samus absorbing the X-Parasite from the SAX at the end of Metroid Fusion got rid of all that junk in her body, and she's basically back to normal Samus. I know Dak hates that, but I don't want to mess around with that in this story. We are also going to assume that Adam, unfortunately, still is with Samus, but we're going to really downplay his role in this new game. So I'm going to set up a new story, and this is really a building block, because I feel like lots of people really want the end of the Metroid saga, and I totally get that. And I kind of want to see it too, but I also want to see, I want to see the Galactic Federation get their comeuppance, but I want to see them, also be like, what's next, and what story are we telling after the fact, and what can we do to keep Metroid going into the future, instead of the kind of the interquels, I guess you call them, or whatever. So I want to build up some new characters and some future enemies and some future factions for Metroid here. So this is the main purpose of this game that I'm pitching. So we're going to have, let's just say Adam and Samus get a hot tip, and they've been tipped off to a top secret Splinter Cell research facility. It can be a space station, or it can be on a planet. I didn't really go into detail. Whatever we want to let our imagination fill in, that can be what happens. But they're going to find this top secret Splinter Cell research base, and they're going to go in and they're going to investigate. And this is where the game itself would start properly. And so, moving away from story mechanics here for a second, and actually going into gameplay mechanics, I think that wherever you are, and when I originally pitched this idea, it was a space station, but Dak kind of pointed out it was a little bit too similar to Other M, so I'm leaving some wiggle room in there. But the original pitch was to have a space station, and you have a different kind of suit that would control the gravity of the space station, allowing you to do some puzzles and vertical and flipping and whatever. We can still integrate that into this facility if we want. The gist of that was to give Samus a suit that really allows her to play with the interactivity of the environment around her. I still think that would be really cool, and it's not really something that Metroid has done before, so I think that could be pretty interesting. But so the gist of this top secret Splinter Cell base is there is said to be a crazy new weapon here, and we're going to go and investigate what that new weapon is. And along the way, Samus is going to find, let's call them upgrades to her regular arsenal. So I know that Dak has pointed out before that he wants Samus to start off like fully powered. We don't want to have to lose the powers again. And I agree with that to an extent. But I think that what you can do, you can have the best of both worlds. You can start off with a lot of your powers, but maybe you're just in an environment where those powers aren't effective. So let's just say that this Splinter Cell research group has some kind of electromagnetic something so that the space jump doesn't work, or that the screw attack doesn't work, etc., etc. So we're going to find what we would call upgraded versions of the space jump, and maybe it operates in a completely different way. We have like a completely different kind of screw attack. I'm not going to go granular into what this is because I'm not really sure. We can have tons of different beams that do wild and cool things, but along the way, we're going to go in and we're going to find out like what is the secret weapon that this facility has. That's going to be the driving question until you get to basically the end of the game. What is this weapon? And we're going to assume that this weapon is some kind of bioweapon or some kind of like laser gun or something. And we're going to progress through and through the game. We're going to get to the very end, and we are going to finally learn what this weapon is. And what this weapon is going to be is we are going to find out that it's not necessarily a weapon at all, but we have found out, let's call them little eggs. You guys remember in Jurassic Park when you see velociraptors hatching from eggs? All right.
Yeah.
We're going to see little Ridleys hatching from these eggs. That's the weapon. They have found Ridley's species. They have found what he is, and they have found new ways to create real Ridleys, and not that whatever it was in Other M. We're going to harness this new species, and there's going to be 3 Ridleys born, but it's very important that we don't call them clones. We don't call them Ridley. These are new characters. These are new additions to the Metroid universe, and these 3 can, I guess, grow and mature to be enemies in future Metroid games. But we're not going to fight them in this Metroid game. In fact, what we're going to do is when we finally find this weapon, we are going to fight one of our old buddies who is revealed to be a part of this Splinter Cell operation, and that's Admiral Dane. So we're going to throw down with Dane. We're going to have it out. That's going to be your final boss battle. It can be like some kind of Gundam battle, I don't know. But it's going to be really cool. It's not going to be a monster or anything like that. We've kind of played that before. Let's have something a little bit different here. But towards the end of the game, we're going to see these 3 Ridleys. I hate calling them Ridleys, but, we're going to see these 3 Ridleys basically abducted, let's just say, by this Dark Chozo order. So that sets up your next big enemy. So we've wiped out a big part of the Splinter Cell operation here, but they're still lingering in the background. We've taken, we've got a lot of their upgrades, but we've missed out on the new generation and the new species that is the Ridley species, and the Dark Chozo has them, and so the Dark Chozo is presumably going to use them, and it's coming for the Galactic Federation in Metroid 6 or whatever the next Metroid game is, and we can use these characters as the new enemies going forward, because I feel like what Metroid is really good at is it really is good at giving characters arcs. So like, you know, from Metroid 1 to Super Metroid, you fight the Space Pirates and Mother Brain, and then you defeat them, and that story's kind of done. From Metroid Prime 1 to 3, you fight Dark Samus, and that story's kind of done. Metroid Fusion, we don't really have the end of that arc, but, you know, I think that we all love battling Ridley, but at this point, I feel like perhaps Ridley could use a little bit of a rest, because there's only so many times that you can come back from the dead and still have that big impact. And I think that this is a way to get that same kind of big fight feel, the same kind of intensity, the same kind of imminent threat that Ridley gives by having like new species of Ridleys and more than one. So I think that would be really cool. That'd be a cool direction to go in. It would build up some new characters and build up some new enemies for Metroid, which I think we're in desperate need of. And you know, I'm assuming we'd have a heck of a game in there too, with all that new stuff that we're going to have in this Splinter Cell facility. So, you know, you can throw the usual in there. There can be different environments. There can be different stuff, whatever. But yeah, that's the crux of the story. We're going to take on the Splinter Cell operation. We're going to find out what that weapon is, and we're going to set up new characters and new plot points moving forward in the Metroid series.
Nice. All right, so let's open the floor here. I'm curious, Dak, what gets you excited about this idea?
Dak hates this idea.
Nothing. I think this idea sucks. Yeah. So nothing is my answer.
Oh, tragic.
Dak, I pitched this to Dak already. He didn't like it. He wants like a full-scale war that just ends the Metroid series.
It doesn't end the Metroid series. It would just end the main.
What's next?
No, that's not what I said. It would end this current story that's happening. Obviously, you would set up the next story. But I want a finality to the actual main story that's happening in Metroid, and it certainly wouldn't include cloning more Ridleys and this.
You're not cloning Ridley. You're not cloning Ridley.
You put more. You do
Ridley.
Like all the bad Galactic Federation guys all happen to be in one specific place.
They
like,
don't all happen to be there.
The Splinter Cell building, is that what it says on the outside of the building? Is that on their business card?
Yes, it is actually. Yes. Thank you for taking a power nap during my pitch, Dak. You can go back to sleep now. Thank you very much for coming.
I was sleeping for it.
Yeah, we can tell.
I didn't really
it doesn't say Splinter Cell building. It says Sam Fisher Memorial Center.
Yeah, something like that. Tom Clancy's Galactic Federation.
All right,
go back to sleep.
Let me see if I can help get you on board with this, Dak. I'm curious. Just to play with this idea for a second, Andy. What happens if, since we have some of the dark faction of Chozo that apparently were hiding somewhere and survived, but since they're around, what if they started, you know, working with this hatchery program and infuse these newly hatched Ridleyites, why not, with Metroid DNA as well, so that it's now a hybrid creature to better, wreck somebody's day.
You know what? I think that'd be okay, but I wouldn't personally want to see that, just because, like, I feel like Ridley the species is enough. Like, that's enough of a threat. And what you can do instead is, like, presumably, so when we saw these Dark Chozo, they were on SR388 and the Chozo Memories and Samus Returns, and it looks like they kind of wiped out, let's call them the good Chozo. So it makes sense to me that perhaps they figured out how these guys were creating Metroids, and it makes sense to me that you can come up with some kind of, something, not Phazon, but something of that ilk to allow them to control Metroids, because Metroids aren't inherently evil, they're just creatures, right? But if they're under the control of the Dark Chozo, with whatever it is that they use to control them, you can Dark Aeon or something like that. I mean, yeah, you can play with that. They can have their Dark Metroid army, and then you can have them transform into maybe new versions of Metroids, not the standard evolution line that we know.
All right, Isabel, what gets you excited? What are you what gets you excited here to play Andy's game?
Well, actually, what I'm thinking of is if we bring back Adam, I'm thinking of like the Aeon Power-Ups, and I'm thinking that what would be like an interesting idea for like having like additional kind of like optional power-ups would be like something that you could give Adam, like a scan pulse, or even like something that could like shut down enemies or something like that. Like these would be like optional things, so like he wouldn't necessarily be like integrated into the gameplay as much as like the regular power-ups, but it would be interesting to have something like you said, like this kind of dark Aeon energy that this sort of Splinter cell is maybe working on, because if then it could be a way to sort of like integrate that into the new sort of weapons or something like that without it being kind of hokey. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. I'm just thinking like that would be like an interesting way to help have Adam in there without him being there, I guess, if that makes sense.
I actually hate Adam. I hate Adam. I hate him in Other M, and I think he sucks in Fusion. In a perfect world, my game isn't going to have Adam at all. Maybe Dak can have his game that just ends the Metroid series, and it can end Adam, and then we can just eliminate Adam in that game, so that my future game doesn't have to be bogged down by this ridiculous character. That would be perfect. I see you, Dak.
At the end, maybe Adam sacrifices himself to.
I was gonna choosing my words there, but I refrained from saying anything.
I think I know what 2 words you were choosing.
Yeah, he's literally biting his tongue. Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, nothing about your idea really gets me excited, but I will say that Adam, I will agree with you that Adam is certainly not one of the more exciting aspects of Fusion. But I still like him as a character. I'm not trying to get him more involved. I just don't think we need to like stop and chat with him every 5 seconds. But I like him as a character, and I still like the dynamic between him and Samus. I just don't think he needs to be a mandatory stop and check in with him every 5 seconds, which I'm sure is really what Andy hates the most about the character. And obviously, I don't like him in Other M for character reasons and all of that, but in Fusion as a character, I think he's fine. I just think how he's implemented could be a little more streamlined now, at least in 2021.
Yeah, and actually, that's pretty much it, right? Like it's Adam, unfortunately, just has the connotation of being like you just stop and have to talk to him all the time. So I think that if it was optional, like you were saying, Isabel, like that could be something where you could voluntarily call Adam and say like. Give me some information on this brick or something like that, or like how's it going up in the ship or whatever, right? Like I think that would be okay.
So what if Adam was just voiced so that there wasn't a point where the game was stopping you to feed you text from Adam,
right?
But it was just a voice in your ear periodically when something was going on, and maybe at the end we can get rid of Adam by way of him making the sacrifice play to download himself into the Federation's Black Ops division here and corrupt all their research so that they can't keep going on.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that we talk about a Metroid Fusion remake all the time, at least on Omega, and I think that's the number one change that you make if you're remaking that game is, you just have a voiceover and Adam talks to you and gives you your objective while you're still moving instead of just standing there and text you confirm your objective. I think that can be fixed quite easily, and that would really improve the game. I don't know, like it's not like I hate Adam so much that I want to see him like completely eradicated from the series. I just think like if you do the self-sacrifice thing again, like after Other M, and I know that none of us are particularly in love with Other M, but like, it did happen. He already did it once. It's kind of like, it doesn't mean as much to me because like he's a computer AI, but I feel like kind of indifferent. If Adam is there at the beginning of the game and is our like faux companion, I guess, if you will, I could probably live with that. But if he's not, then I could live with that too.
Right. Now, I gotta say, what surprises me here is you're throwing Admiral Dane under the bus with the rest of the bad guys here.
Yeah, Yeah,
Like,
well,
what
I
did
know.
Admiral Dane ever do to you to deserve this?
So my original pitch, because I love Admiral Dane, and I love having like Prime integrated with like mainline Metroid. So my original pitch was like Samus is just like on the run from the Galactic Federation as a whole, and maybe that could actually be applied to this game still, because I think it would mean more if like Admiral Dane was a little bit reluctant to fight Samus and not a bad guy. So maybe we could tweak that, and make it so that fight is kind of more like Snake versus boss at the end of Metal Gear Solid 3. But I do think it would be cool if you had to fight like a foe that you have a connection with. The only thing about that is like then you have this top secret Splinter Cell facility that the Galactic Federation as a whole shouldn't really know about, but then they do. So there's some plot holes there to fill in for sure.
That's all right. It's an elevator pitch. It's not a full game doc.
Yeah.
Now, I will say the other one that gets me excited here too, that I think could really push on some puzzle solving, is having sections a lot like what Milton did with AM2R, where in like a specific section, one specific power or ability is essentially muted, and you then have to, very creatively puzzle solve your way around things that would have been very simple if you had that one thing that you now can't use for a minute.
Yeah.
I like that idea a lot.
Yeah,
So.
I just think I like the idea of I like the formula in Metroid of acquiring your power-ups, right? Like I really do love that. That gives purpose to your adventure. But like from a logistical storytelling standpoint, it's like, all right, how do we get these items off Samus again? And like, do I really want to hunt down missiles and super missiles again, or do I want to hunt down something a little bit more cool, something different, like a diffusion missile? At least that's kind of like, you could say that that's a new Splinter Cell technology or something like that, or like maybe a new version of Space Jump. I don't know exactly what that would be, but it's the same kind of idea. You're collecting it, but it's new.
Actually, you know what I was thinking? Sorry, when you said integrating into like the environment, I thought of a camouflage suit. I don't know what you think about that. That would be interesting, and like have it be like kind of more stealthy, kind of. I don't know.
I think that could be. You know what? Actually, I think that'd be cool with, and it's probably just because we think of the stealth section in Zero Mission, but one of our very first episodes of Omega was we were kind of thinking of Zero Suit Samus like video game ideas, and in my mind I'm like, all right, we'll make that like a Metal Gear game or something like that, right? And because when you think of, or at least when I think of Zero Suit Samus, I think of stealth because of that, the beginning of Zero Mission. So I think that would actually be really cool in that scenario where like you could blend into your environment and stuff like that. I feel like I've dropped like 3 Metal Gear Solid references in the show already, but they did that in Metal Gear, and that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So any final thoughts before we put a bow on this pitch for this week?
I will say that, well, because Andy called me out saying that I was sleeping. Obviously, I know you meant that, they find Ridley eggs or something. They didn't clone them, whatever. I just don't like the idea of a Ridley species. I think it's super lame. It's the same lameness of the Pokemon thing that they did in Other M. I like the idea of there just being like one Ridley and that was it. And so I don't know, but I think that's more personal preference. I don't necessarily think the idea of like there being a Ridley species is bad. That's just what Andy prefers or thinks it's a good idea. That's not my preference, but it's better than Other M's Pokemon Ridley. Like I'd rather there be Ridley eggs that they find and they hatch some Ridleys rather than them spawning, a Gen 2 Pokemon or something in Pallet Town or whatever. I'm just
what if they gave them a Mega Evolution?
Here. Okay, now you're talking. Now
we're talking.
Now here's
Larry
the question.
Ridley.
What's the Mega Evolution of Ridley look like? What's he do?
That's
I
meta
think
gotta
Ridley.
make it awesome.
I think somebody actually did like Pokemon drawings of Ridley, and they made like a Mega Evolution of him. I'd have to look that up again, but it looked really cool. But it's been a while since I've seen that, so. But that was
Isabel,
like,
you got to tell someone from the Metroid zine to make like a Galarian variant Ridley or something like that.
yeah. Well, we have a severe lack of Ridley in the zine anyway, so we need more of that anyway. So, yes, definitely. This is my call to anyone who is listening. Please send more Ridley stuff. So
There you go.
We need a shiny Ridley. That's
yes,
what we need.
yes, make it bright blue, something like that.
All right. So, Andy, help us put a bow on this bad boy. Give us the title.
Oh boy. You know what? I feel like at this point you gotta call the next Metroid game Metroid Dread, or that'll just like never die. It'll never go away until you do. But I don't know if this is that game, so maybe I'm gonna call it Metroid Splinter Cell.
There you go.
Working title. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Works for me. I can live with that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Tie a little bow on it. Send it as a free gift to Nintendo. That
That's
kind of
right.
thing. Yes.
Keep telling them to hire me, but they keep saying no.
Yeah. What
I
a
mean, they
shame.
passed on Milton. At this point, I don't know what to trust anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
So, all right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this week, and we're going to do another one next week. In the meantime, make sure you check out our as yet to be created Twitter for the Phazon Labs. We'll have that Twitter handle in the show notes when this goes live. And you can, of course, find Andy and Dakota over at the Omega Metroid Podcast. And if you're not listening to that already, you should. And we will see you next week. Peace!